As I mentioned, I'm Jack, and this event was put together by John, our communications manager. Essentially, it's an activity which will take place over the course of around a week or so, and you'll be tasked to develop a sort of a UI design for a specific context, which we'll give full details of over the course of this event. So without further ado, I will hand straight over to John, who will provide some additional details with regards to this challenge.
Okay, thanks Jack, and welcome everyone to the UI Design Challenge. We're joined by John, Sam and Will today, who will be giving their tips and advice on what makes a good design. And we'll also be joined by some special guests from election candidates who will be giving their 60-second pitches, and that'll happen in about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so for those of you who attended our UI Design Challenge last year, you may already be familiar with the format, but this year there are a few changes. Either way, I'll be explaining everything you need to know, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have at the end. Feel free to leave those in the chat as we go along. The main changes for this event are you now get 1 week to design an interface based around a given scenario, and you can also work either by yourself or in teams of up to 5 members. To give you a brief overview of the schedule today, I'll start by introducing the challenge and giving you all the details you need to know about. After that, you'll be able to sign up to our £50 prize draw and hear from our judges, who will give their tips and advice for winning the UI Design Challenge, with time at the end for any vote questions. So you'll have until 4 PM on the 17th of March, which is next Wednesday, to submit your design. I'll explain the scenario on the next slide and show you an example later. But essentially, we're looking for one screen only, submitted as an image or a screenshot, and there's no coding required with this, so all we need is that simple mock-up design. Now I'll run through the scenario you should follow when thinking about your design. If you go to uidc.cybersoc.wales, you'll be able to find this scenario as well as everything else mentioned in the slideshow, either via the recording of the launch event or by looking at the submission guide, which is available to download as a PDF. So CyberSoc is looking for a mock-up design of a home screen for a new mobile app to advertise their events. One requirement is that the design is advertise or incorporate something about the UI Design Challenge. So you might have a grid of events, and one of them being the UI Design Challenge. And feel free to make up any other events, the dates and times, and so on. The two main aims for this app are to easily book tickets and to express interest in the event. It's entirely up to you how your design achieves this, but you could just have a button that says book a ticket and make sure that stands out reasonably well. To express interest in the event, that could be a like button, or if you want to take that a bit further, maybe add some emojis like the reaction feature on Facebook. And lastly, because you're designing an app for CyberSoc, you need to keep CyberSoc's brand in mind. And you can get an idea of the brand from this slide and also from our website. If you want, you can add the CyberSoc logo to your design, and that's available to download from uidc.cybersoc.wales. But I'll explain a bit more about the brand later on. And don't forget, we're giving away a total of over £200 in Amazon vouchers to our top 3 designs. And because you're able to work in teams, the prize pot is much bigger this year. So first place will get a £100 Amazon voucher, second place is £75, and third place is a £50 voucher. If you're working as a team, each member will get an equal share of that prize, so be aware that if there are more people in your team, the less each member will get, but it is essentially easier when there are more people. For those of you attending live, that is not watching the recording, you'll be able to enter into our prize draw to win a £50 Amazon voucher. In about 10 to 15 minutes, once I've given you some guidance and shown you the example design, you'll then be able to sign up, and we'll announce the winner at the end. We'll send the voucher to your Cardiff Uni email, so if for whatever reason you need to go before the end of the event, that's fine, but please do stay on if you can to hear the advice from our judges and of course ask your questions. Moving on to some guidance for you all before you start designing your app. So remember, all you need to do is make a mock-up drawing, not a fully functioning app. And also you might be thinking you need Photoshop or Illustrator to make a good design, but there are some free alternatives that you can do. You can use do the job just as well. Some of which are on the screen now. I used Adobe XD to create the example design that I'll show you a bit later. You can even use PowerPoint if you wish. Whatever software you have already downloaded or accessible to use is absolutely fine. Please don't pay for anything solely for this event. And lastly, I think our judges mentioned it last time, but Figma is a good tool to use if you decide to work in teams, because you can collaborate together on one design, sort of like Google Docs, but for mock-up designs. So do give that a try if you're working as a group. If I could ask our judges quickly, what design tools do you use in your projects? Some people here might be thinking of a career in UI design, so which do you think is a good tool to get some experience with?
I'll
Yeah,
jump in.
Do you want to jump in first? Go for it. Go for it. Well, favorite.
So we use it sort of a mix. So for collaboration, sort of like a whiteboard tool, we use Miro. That's obviously since we've gone working from home, it really helps us rather than placement of a whiteboard. In terms of personal, I use Adobe XD, just sort of grown to love it, and it's a really useful tool with lots of benefits and features that will help you with your designs. But we actually use a software called Axure in Principality, and it's a really old software without any of the bells and whistles of Figma, but it's actually brilliant for usability testing, because you can create an input field, and then when you put it into a usability test, which you can send obviously halfway across the world, that participant who's going through your test can actually enter in a real email, which you can throw validations for and so on. So it's as a front end tool, it's really beneficial to being able to understand how the user is interacting with that screen of design. That's Admiral. John?
Yeah, so predominantly we use Figma just for sort of live collaboration, but it's actually only this week I saw some customer testing be carried out from PowerPoint, essentially. So somebody had set up a few pages in PowerPoint and just asked someone to scroll through essentially almost like a PDF, really. So there's a few different ways you can do it. Like Will was saying, you get really quite detailed with the sort of interaction design and how people interact with things, but then you can strip it right back to just an image, and you just get someone to scroll through it and consume the content. And then sometimes if we're talking to sort of business stakeholders, we might strip all color out and all styling, because they get quite excited about color, and they sort of miss sometimes the focus on sort of a brief. So we might just draw things in any type of drawing tool someone might have, and just draw boxes and arrows and type in text. So it does depend on the context, but yeah, like John said, there's so many just great free tools to use. You don't need anything extensive really at this stage. The complexity maybe comes later down the line when you're doing developer handoff and things like that, but just for concept, yeah, anything that's free that's around, but predominantly we use Figma for collaboration.
Okay, great, thanks for that. So on to resources. A good choice of icons, colors and fonts is essential in your design. So do take a look at some of these resources when making your app screen. For icons, I'd recommend icons8.com, as you can browse a range of specific styles. And the icons on this PowerPoint are from Icons8, and they're part of the Fluent style. And there are many color palette sites to choose from. With Adobe Color in particular, you can upload a photo or graphic, and it will generate a color scheme from that. So you could upload the CyberSoc logo, and it will generate a color palette for you. And lastly, I'd recommend looking at Google Fonts in particular, as you can download a range of popular fonts for free, including the CyberSoc brands font called Ubuntu. And speaking of the CyberSoc brand, here's a bit of information to think about when you're trying to meet that requirement in the scenario to match the brand. If you want, you can download our logo, and that's available at uidc.cybersoc.wales. The main color we use is cyan, and an important thing to note is it looks all right on dark colors, but you can barely read it when it's on white, so the contrast is too low. So maybe a dark mode will work better for your design. Okay, here's an example. Now, some of you might be fairly experienced with app design. Some of you may not have designed an app before and are just looking to try it out. So there's no pressure at all with this. Just try your best and do what you can. But take this as an idea of what you need to submit. So just one screen, a simple image that you can upload. And like I said earlier, there's no coding required. On the left, you can see what I used to make it. So where it says designed for Android, this means I kept Android's guidelines in mind and designed it to look like an Android app. It's worth pointing out that you don't need to mention what you use and so on. All you need is that one image. If you want to add annotations, that's fine, but they're not needed. If we zoom in, you can see I've used material design icons as it's a Android app, and it matches the CyberSoc brand. It also advertises the UI design challenge, which is one of the requirements in the scenario. So further down, feel free to make up any details such as the date and time of the events and so on. Now in the scenario, we mentioned the aims of the app, and this design bears those in mind with these call to action buttons. So as they're your most important actions, they should stand out reasonably well. Here the text is in capitals and is surrounded by that white border. The other aim was to express interest in the event, and you can see there's this heart button, which you can click on to do so. And finally, there's consistency throughout this home screen, and something that I've found is increasingly popular is on very subtle shadows around things, just to make them stand out a bit more. But of course, it's entirely up to you how you lay out your design. Just bear in mind that scenario. So you can use that design to get an idea of what sort of things we're looking for. You've got a week to submit your design, so you can use this time to do a bit of research and have a look at some other event apps on some of these sites on screen now. But of course, don't just copy someone else's design. What I say is copy the ideas, but not the design itself. So if you're struggling to think about the start, do have a look at some of these. So my second question to our judges would be, where do you look for inspiration? Is it some of these sites, or do you look elsewhere?
Yeah, I'll start with that one if you want, Dennis. I think we basically look. They're great resources in terms of looking for inspiration. So I think personally I use Dribble quite a lot and Behance. But sometimes some of the best inspiration you can find are JSON products, or products that are similar to the things that you're designing, or things in the real world. So as you'll notice, a lot of calendar components on any digital product you see will reflect the calendar that you would see in real life. And that's because you can associate a kind of relationship with that physical product. So yeah, there's a little tip in there. If you can kind of replicate kind of things that exist in the physical world and things that we're used to interacting with, there's less of a gap there in terms of having to learn to use that in order to learn to use the tool, because you've already got that bit of recognition with. So yeah, some great resources there, but also you'll find lots around you in the physical world.
Yeah, same. Yeah, to add to that is, yeah, don't be afraid to be a magpie and have a look at all the different things that are around you. Yeah, it's quite good seeing sort of John's just example there, because you can just see these probably reference points that he's either subconsciously picked up, and probably of when somebody first might see your design, it might be just the first experience they get of it. So think about how they use other products and how they use other apps, because you want them to have a similar experience and sort of have quite a quick understanding of your design and understanding of what you want them to do and what they need to do. So yeah, just have a think about the stuff you already use and what pick the best parts of it, and then you can also critique the stuff you don't like about it, and then go off and explore maybe what can be done to improve that. Even the sort of native applications you have on any of your devices. So it doesn't actually have to be an app you downloaded. You could actually just have a look at the native stuff on an iPhone or an Android device and see, oh, okay, it works like this, it works like that. Have a think about why it works like that. And like Sam said, take a bit of inspiration about how it's used in the outside world to shape up what you're going to make.
I just want to add, if you go into some of those sites, don't directly go for, a calendar style app. Go for something else like Airbnb that has, it's showing similar grouped information, but just in a slightly different way. So take inspiration from other areas of industries, not just, this particular event bite style.
Okay, thanks for that. And a few things to keep in mind to make sure this is a fair challenge. As I said, please do look online for inspiration, but don't just copy design from somewhere and submit that. This is your chance to be creative and think of new ideas. And please don't share your design with anyone else outside the team. If you are working as a team, be sure to include everyone who contributed to your design in the submission form. And talking about that submission form, you might now be wondering, how do I submit my design? So once you or your team is happy with your final design, go to uidc.cybersoc.wales, and there'll be a link to the submission form on that website. You'll need to submit by the 17th of March at 4 p.m. and the submission form will close at that time, so please don't leave it until the last minute. You can also submit your design, you can only submit your design once, and you'll need to be signed in with your Cardiff Uni email account. This is so we know who to send the and vouchers to if you win. And if there are any problems submitting your design, please email me, and if you scroll down to the bottom of their website, there'll be a button you can click on to do so. So I mentioned our website quite a lot throughout this presentation, and it really is a place to go for everything related to the UI Design Challenge. Be sure to bookmark it or keep a record of it, so you can easily find the information you need and then submit your design. I'll just put the link to their website in the chat. Okay. And in a moment, you'll be able to enter our prize draw and hear from our judges. But first, I want to quickly go over some basic tips to consider. The main thing is to keep it simple, use a minimalistic modern design. There's no need to go over the top and clutter the screen. It's important to be consistent, so a consistent layout and consistent with the CyberSoc brand. Make a design unique. It's all about making that good first impression with your design. And you can do this by being a bit of a perfectionist. If something looks out of place, go ahead and change it and try different things. And I do say a bit, meaning don't spend too long in the design. We're not looking for an absolutely perfect design whatsoever. I'll now hand over to our judges, and feel free to put your questions you might have in the chat as you go along. We'll go in alphabetical order here. So, John, what would your tips be for creating a good design?
Yes, I think Jack said it right at the start when we were in our waiting room about, what is good design, and it's almost like what's the meaning of life. So it's quite an abstract thought to define what makes something good and what makes something great when you're designing something. But definitely have a think about what is the problem you're trying to solve. So sometimes you can jump straight to aesthetics. You can get really excited. I'm going to draw a bunch of cool colors and shapes and things like that. There's no problem with just taking a step back and thinking, what is the ultimate objective of this? And, does it serve the person who's going to use it best? So how, just how usable it is it, how accessible is it? Does the person get to do exactly what they want to do in front of them in the easiest possible way? So sometimes you might start off your project in like I said, just boxes and arrows, and you might just think, does this person want to do this? And if they want to do that, how can I display that to them? So although it's a UI challenge, definitely take a little bit of a step back before maybe drawing things. And there's nothing wrong with just doing scribbles and ideas, but ultimately just think, how does this best serve somebody? And then that person, I think I said it previously, is they might see your image that you're going to create, and it's the first time they've ever seen that image. So just be very aware that, if it's the first time someone's ever going to see it, what might their perception be of it? What things might they think about first? Are they going to be confused by what you're showing them? So just always take a step back and try and think about the customer or the user. It's very easy to get excited about design and things like that. But yeah, give it a go. I'm sure it's gonna be great fun. But yeah, always keep the customer in mind.
Okay, thanks, John. And now over to Sam.
Cheers, John. Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what John said before me, a lot of John's. But yeah, definitely think about the user in mind. I think there's lots of definitions of good design, and you'll find lots of them online. But it's the simplicity of it. It's about communicating, what that product does. So if we go to this specific brief that John set out, let's look at some of the key tasks that the user wants to take up. So finding the CyberSoc event, being able to show interest in the event. Those are the main tasks that the user is going to come to that product with in mind. So how can you help them get to that product? So yeah, sometimes there is, everyone wants to jump into the aesthetics first, but definitely think about that functionality. And you can almost think of it, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or you think of the pyramids, it has to be functional first, and then you can make it pleasurable, then you can make it enjoyable, and that's what will give it differentiation and kind of shelf appeal and stuff like that. But get that functionality right, make sure it's communicated clearly so the user knows what they're doing. Yeah, and you'll find that yeah, that will probably define good design rather than color choices at the start. So yeah, that would be my tip for it. And if you wanted to start thinking about it from a component level and thinking about what the user does, and then go into kind of the visual and what it looks like, there's some great resources. So there's a chap called Jacob Nielsen. He owns a consultancy called the NNRG Group, I believe. And they do lots of reports on good UX, and he's got 10 rules or 10 heuristics to what makes good design. And another resource would then be by a chap called Jesse James Garrett, and he's got the 5 principles of UX. So they kind of nice little frameworks or little checklists that you can just ground yourself around when you're creating your design. Yeah, and ensuring that you're doing good design.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Feel free, everyone, to leave your questions in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. But now over to Will.
Thanks, John. So yeah, just to echo what the other two have said, it's the same answer really. What you want is, you don't want someone to come to the app and have to think. You want them to come to instantly understand what they need to do in order to get the task done. So it's called Jacob's Law, and it's about, users spend most of their time on other people's websites. So don't reinvent the wheel. Just take those accents and understanding how a calendar works and put that into your own designs. For example, a calendar. Wireframe, don't. I would say, even though it's a UI challenge, don't do that first at all. Is wireframe. Get down what the usability is, what you're actually going to want them to do, and just put boxes and circles and the text, and because the copy is really important. How can you get the message across in the shortest amount of words so that you're not filling up the screen? I think you could cheat a little because there was no sort of specification on dimensions of the screen, so you could choose an iPhone X Pro Plus or whatever, so it's a bigger dimensions. I don't know if that's allowed. But think about how everything fits in the hand. Are you putting your most important call to action buttons within reach of the thumb or whatever they're going to be pressing? So just simple things like that. How best thing to do when you do have something designed is just put it in front of someone else, whether it's in the house or on the street, someone random, obviously, safe as you can be, and just ask them, what do you think of this? Just say, firstly, what do you think this screen is? Because if they then tell you, oh, I think this is an event planner for CyberSoc's upcoming session, then perfect. You've been able to explain what that app is without even having to ask them anything or tell them anything about it. And that's what you're looking for. It's about telling that sort of that use through the design. I think that's everything. Yeah. Oh yeah, and just when you get onto the websites and look at examples, look at like the grouping of information. So on the example that John showed you, the menu was all grouped together. The one event was all grouped together with a title, and all the sub information was all. So just use that to sort of understand how people sort of go through a screen and read it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Will. I've had a couple of questions about the submission. So all you need to submit is just one simple image. So if I go back to the example, yeah, so all you need to submit is now just one image right there, and on the submission form you can see that you just upload that, and there's no need for any annotations, but you can add them if you do want to. So any other questions? So while we're waiting for some other questions, one other question from me will be, what made you decide on a career in UI UX design? Did you always have that career path in mind? Feel free to jump in.
I'll go first if you like. Yeah, I started out with a traditional background of product design. So yeah, I always had interest in designing products or physical ones at the start. So yeah, cameras, camera accessories, furniture. That's how it started out. And then when you see people interact with those products, and you realise that most of the products people interact with now are digital. Yeah, there was lots of kind of methodologies that you could translate over. So yeah, back when I started, it was called product design. I think product design has a completely different meaning now, and it relates to the digital products. But yeah, there was lots that you could learn when you could see people using something physical. There's lots that you could translate over to there. So yeah, it all started from an interest of first of all drawing, then designing products, then I landed in digital. How about you guys?
I got a similar background. So I started in 3D physical or industrial design, and it just sort of through my time in university, I realized that, I was a bit more interested in the usability of things and actually putting things in front of people and having them test. I thought I was a lot more interested in understanding, getting that quick feedback and able to iterate something very quickly and get it back to them the next day. I just really enjoyed that process of iterating. And yeah, a job opportunity came up within financial sector and designing for apps and web, and I just sort of took on that, and I just sort of realized that this really where my passion is, and that led me on to Principality.
Yeah, and just finally with me, so I came from predominantly an advertising background, so in sort of the media world, that sort of then focused in on optimization, so how to improve conversion. So it initially started out with advertising creatives and just how to improve optimization to certain websites. I then joined Admiral in a more like optimization based role. So yeah, how can we just get people from one step of the page to another step of the page? Sort of touching on some of the things we've all spoken about here today, really, and that sort of led me into less of advertising and maybe more input in product and how to make product optimization, to how can you make product design changes to improve the product, improve the conversion, and also improve the overall experience of a customer. So yeah, that's how it all started for me. And now it's starting to branch into, I was saying to Jack just before we started, it's interesting how things like cyber and design are starting to cross over a lot more now. So how can people use design across a business, or how can you use the way you implement a product across a business? For any of you guys thinking about, what is UI when I sort of step out of this world? It's quite interesting because, for some of you, it won't be drawing images and things like that. So for some of you, it might be implementing those designs into code. For other people, it might be how to set up products and systems for sort of maximum security and usability at the same time. So although today in the challenge this week is about UI, it's just quite interesting to see how there's a big crossover between the society you guys are in and the challenge that's happening. So yeah, don't think maybe just what you're doing today is just drawing things. It might give you a little bit of an insight into design, product, user experience, and then that'll just lead sort of to like an increased knowledge when you leave uni then and take it on into the real world. So yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, thanks for that. We've got a question here about, are we mainly focusing on layout or assets, or do we need to be concerned about user flow and show where buttons lead to? So I would say that it's mainly just a static image, so you wouldn't need to say what this button does or stuff like that. You can if you want, but it's not a requirement. And there's one here probably for our judges. Any tips on working with others in the team on the UI design? Anyone want to take that?
Yeah, go on. I'll start. Yeah, so I suppose that's something that we've had to kind of learn on the job the last year, working remotely. So first of all, kind of we all work in a nice big open plan kind of office, and then we all moved to different parts of Wales, and now we've had members of the team that join even further afield. So we've got members of the team from Mid Wales, North Wales, across the border. So we use lots of things to keep us kind of to keep the communication flowing. So if you're working part of the team, it's a good habit to kind of keep regular updates. So you might have heard of a methodology called Agile, and that's predominantly centered around kind of one main checklist, and you'll all kind of have tasks devoted to yourselves in the teams. And it's good just to catch up, whether it's daily, whether it's once every 2 days, and just see where each other are in the kind of checklist. So if you've been assigned a task, or you need a little bit of help, these sessions really they act as a great point to call out for help or to share the work that you've done, and just get up to speed with what everybody's doing. So yeah, we use lots of free software for that. So you could be Zoom, it could be a quick Zoom chat, it could be kind of Microsoft Teams, WebEx, all those types of things. But yeah, in terms of a process and the way in which we do it, it's those regular daily kind of updates across one main shared task list.
I think I just want to add the point of like a brand guidelines or any digital component guidelines. They all have a sort of solutionized reason behind them, and when you approach a problem, you have an idea of how you could potentially use some of these components to create that solution. And so that's something that we work on together, and we sort of build out. And if a new problem comes up that we essentially needs some new components, then we work together to understand how should they look, how should they operate, and so on. So it's just a consistent sort of iteration, and that's the beauty of obviously doing it online, is because you can make the update overnight if it's not working, whereas in the 3D world, once it's manufactured and released, that's it. You've just got to hope no one complains.
There's quite a good question then about the resources. So a few have been mentioned today, but I mean, yeah, YouTube and stuff is amazing now, and there's some great channels specifically for like this industry we're in. You only have to type in UX probably into YouTube, and you're going to get a load of great channels and people in the industry telling you their journey about how they entered it and ways in which you can do it. As with most things, you guys probably know that it's all out there. But yeah, I'd say I still use every day I'm using Google and YouTube every day. So even though I'm in the job and I get paid to do it, I'm still YouTube and Googling every single day. So yeah, just start hunting around and just seeing what's out there, and then there's lots of subsections even within the sort of design side of things. So like I mentioned, you could be very interested in maybe like front-end code. You could get technical on that side of things and how things sort of look. You could be interested in the way someone might interact with it and how things animate. You could be interested in kind of what Will mentioned about the words which are being used, so sort of like UX copy, and how do you write in a certain way to present your information to someone. It doesn't just have to be, styles and the way you're drawing things. So yeah, there's a whole host of areas there. And even actually just thinking about on a day-to-day basis, I don't know about you, Sam and Will, but, it's solving customer problems, and sort of research is a big part of that. So just having the discipline to carry out tasks, to understand pain points of people and ways ways to sort of explore their problem in the first place, and then understanding ways to fix that. That doesn't require any type of developer or code knowledge. It's essentially problem solving and then relaying it back to the business about how we can create solutions for people to really figure out, to test and learn the best way of doing that. Because we might all have an opinion about the best way of doing something, and even seeing your UI challenge next week, there'll be certain things I like that Sam and Will might not like, and often the best way to do it is to test it with people people you don't know, and eventually there will be a winner that comes out. So yeah, there's a whole host of sort of subsections, even just with the idea of design. Don't just think it's just drawing.
Yeah, I'd probably jump on that question as well, John, in terms of like what resources are available. And some of the best advice I ever received kind of early on in the career is just take some of these free tools. So just like John presented in the presentation, there's so many great free tools out there that you can access, and just play and just have some fun with it. If there's a particular product that's kind of really irritating you at the moment. So I think John, Shan, we were talking about Clubhouse the other day, where we joined up and we were talking about the onboarding journey. So, you can start to take some of these real world examples, take some of the free tools, and take some of those free resources such as YouTube and stuff like that, and just have a play. And like John said, use that then to just share your work and just have to start a conversation with people basically. But yeah, you can learn a lot just from taking something that you're quite passionate about, or a journey that's frustrated you, taking some of those free resources and just you're learning through play, and it's amazing what you can pick up.
Okay, great. We got a question here. Are the slides to this going to be available afterwards? We're not planning on releasing the slides, but the recording will be up probably tomorrow. And there's also a submission guide. So if you go to uidc.cybersoc.wales, you'll be able to download the submission guide with everything on it as well. Any other questions?
I'm excited, guys. It's gonna be fun. I think like probably just like the last thing was you know, don't feel any pressure. You're going to go through these points probably where you're going to look back at your own design and think this is absolutely rubbish, and there's no problem with that. You're going to go through these sort of ups and downs of thinking, shall I do this, shall I not do this, and you have conflicting ideas. And I think Sam mentioned it is about don't hesitate to share it with others, even at a very early concept stage. Yeah, just share it around with friends, family to start with. I know, like John said, don't share it amongst your peers because it is a competition, but yeah, just don't hesitate to just get people's opinion about stuff, because we all get in that situation where we sort of question our own judgment, and sometimes you know your gut feeling's right, but there's nothing wrong with yeah, just sharing it amongst people you sort of care about their opinion of. Maybe not on just like randomly on the internet, because you might just get terrible comments, but just with friends and family for now is fine.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. If you do have another question, be sure to let us know in the chat. I'll just quickly go over a recap and then hand it back over to Jack to announce the winner of the prize draw. So everything you need to know, as I said, is available at uidc.cybersoc.wales. Be sure to make a note of that, as you need to visit that link to submit your design by the all-important deadline, which is 4 p.m. on the 17th of March. And that's a hard deadline, so the submission form will automatically close at that point. So please don't leave it to the last minute. Have fun and try your best. Keep an eye on our socials and your university email for updates. We hope to announce the winner shortly after the deadline. And a quick reminder of the prizes: £100 for our first place design, £75 for second, and £50 for third. And that's all. I'll hand over to Jack in just a bit to announce the winner of the prize draw. All I have to say is thanks very much for attending today, and I wish you well in the UI Design Challenge. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we'll announce the winner in a live broadcast on there, hopefully on Friday the 19th. But keep an eye on our socials and your uni email, as I said, for further updates. I'll just paste the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. Okay. Right, good luck, everyone. I'll now hand back over to Jack to announce the winner of our £50 Amazon voucher prize draw.
Okay, great. And I have just now randomly selected a person who has filled in the prize draw form, and I've come out with Morgan Causa. So congratulations, Morgan. Would you just like to post your email into the chat, or send it to me? And then that'll just confirm that I've got the right email address. I think I found you, but that'll just make sure. But yeah, congratulations to Morgan for that. And of course, then the remaining Amazon vouchers will be disseminated amongst first, second, and third prize winners for the challenge itself. Okay, so back to you, John.
Okay, any final questions before we wrap up today? John, Sam, and Will, any final comments?
Yeah, just have fun with it. Like I said, it's a process. It's great. It's great creativity. Just get involved. Yeah, share it amongst who you can. Get feedback early. Yeah, we're just really looking forward to seeing the variety of things that come back. So yeah, good luck and see you soon.
I just add, just get a bit of paper right now and just do a little scribble of just anything that's sparked from anything that someone's mentioned, and just get your first wireframe down. Don't leave it till the day before.
Yeah, and I suppose I think we've said to John and Jack in the past, if anyone wants to sort of reach out to us about career in this sort of field, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. I'm sure they can pass on our details or connect via LinkedIn or something like that. So yeah, if you've got any other questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Okay, good luck everyone then, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.